Good evening. I hope that you had a great week and hopefully a good Christmas holiday. Tonight, being that we just passed through Christmas and celebrated the birth of the Messiah here on earth, we're going to hear what's up next, a great oratorio that we know as Handel's Messiah. The reason why this oratorio is perfect for the time we are in is because it in fact describes the coming of the Messiah. All the way from before his arrival up to his arrival and even into the future, which we did not yet, even us, experience. His second coming and his eternal kingdom. I want to begin this night by reading a few verses from the Bible. Listen to what the prophet Isaiah says. Behold, the Messiah shall act wisely. He shall be high and lifted up and shall be exalted. As many were astonished, his appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any human being, and his form so marred beyond human likeness. So he will sprinkle the nations. Kings will shut their mouths because of him. For what they were not told they will see, and that which they have not heard they understand. It says there that kings will shut their mouths because of him, because of the Messiah. And I want to point out to you that a fulfillment of this prophecy has taken place in 1743, when King George II of England had the privilege of first listening to this exact oratorio that we will hear tonight. The king and his entourage were so astonished with that performance, and they marveled beyond description as they were listening to the music and the words that they heard. Over 200 years passed since then, and this oratorio still has such a great impact on its listeners. And so we're glad to have you here with us tonight, and we hope that you enjoy this performance tonight. I'll give you a few quick facts about Handel's Messiah. It was composed in 1741 by George Frederick Handel. It was composed in 24 days total. It's comprised of 3 parts, and each part has different movements. Now, we won't be hearing all of that. We'll just be hearing bits and pieces here and there of the entire oratorio, certain movements. When it's played from beginning to end with all repetitions, it's 2.5 hours long. But like I said, we'll only be hearing bits and pieces tonight. As I already said, it describes the coming of the Messiah. And the entire oratorio is based on biblical texts. And so tonight we'll be jumping around here and there just to make sure you understand what the words are that inspired this oratorio. And perhaps the most interesting thing about this oratorio is this. It tells a story. And it tells not just any story, it tells a true story. It's not just a piece of music, but actually it's a narrative from beginning to end. And what's even more interesting is that this story that's embedded into this oratorio allows it to touch our hearts. It connects with us as human beings for some reason. And it allows us to understand exactly what Handel wanted us to understand. This was proven time and time again over history. As I gave you an example with King George II, and other people in history. They all connected deeply with this oratorio. And so tonight, I want you to pay attention to the music, but not only the music, the story behind the music. And although we won't hear the entire oratorio, we'll hear the most prominent pieces. The ensemble will do their best to perform those for you, and I will do my best to fill in the gaps between these movements. I told you that it's based on a true story, and hopefully by the end of the night you'll have a general understanding of this story and the storyline that's woven throughout the oratorio. Now, I have to say, I am by no means an expert in music like many of these people here. I'll do my best to explain the music for you, the musical aspect, and if you happen to be a guru in the area of classical music, and you hear me saying something that you believe is incorrect about Handel's oratorio, take it up with Wikipedia, not with me, okay? Because I did a lot of research in Wikipedia and other sources, and you can take it up with them. I didn't make this stuff up myself. So, let's get into the oratorio. I said it has 3 parts. Part 1, it describes the Messiah's coming, the virgin birth, all predicted by the Old Testament in the Bible. Then part 2 covers Messiah's suffering and his death, and his resurrection afterwards, and then his ascension. Part 3 begins with our redemption, the human race's redemption, and then even our resurrection, and in the end, God's kingdom, his eternal kingdom. So first, we're going to hear the opening movement of Handel's Messiah, performed by this ensemble. This first movement you will hear is what we call the overture. And it's the only movement in the entire oratorio, with the exception of one other one, that is purely instrumental, no voices. Some consider this movement as Handel's interpretation of the first 39 chapters of the book of Isaiah in the Bible, because immediately after this movement, the words are taken from Isaiah chapter 40. Okay? Additionally, the mood of this movement is a gloomy one, just as the message of the first 39 chapters in the book of Isaiah, which prophesies a lot of judgment and despair. For example, they will go around in great distress, so hungry that they will angrily curse their God, their king and their gods. They will look upward and they will look to the earth, and distress, darkness, and gloom, anxiety. People will be forced into the deepest darkness. It talks about darkness and gloom on earth. And although these first chapters of Isaiah are characterized by prophecies of a dark world, they're also sprinkled here and there with a glimpse of light in the coming Messiah. For example, the passage we just read right now is followed by Isaiah 9, which says, "The gloom will be dispelled for those who are anxious. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Those who live in a dark land, the light will shine on them." You see, in God's plan, darkness is followed by the promise of light for those who want it. And so this first movement describes exactly that. It is written in a minor key to reinforce this story of desolation. It presents a world of gloom. Some say it creates a mood without hope, the perfect setting for the necessity of a Savior to save those who are without hope in the world. And while at the same time it is sprinkled with just a few hints of brightness in the music, a few glimpses of light here and there, foreshadowing the light that would follow this darkness. So now let's listen to the orchestra perform this first movement of Handel's Messiah.